Welcome, everyone. I'm Joe Myers. Uh, Wonderful to have you here. While we're waiting a few minutes to give people a chance to join, I was just curious if anyone had any questions from the past last week. David gave a wonderful talk on motivational imperatives. Anyone who saw that or any of our previous webinars, now would be a great time. Feel free to unmute yourself if you have any questions.
Yeah, I was particularly interested in, if you listen to that, how do you feel at the end? Because I was listening to it and it really sort of connected me with this really strong sense of motivation. So if you notice that, raise your hand, unmute yourself, let me know, and I'd like to discuss it.
Not all at once, everyone.
Yeah, that's fine. Likewise, we also have a chat. So there is down there a little chat button on the lower menu bar. So you can click on that and you can type in messages, insights, questions. So if your shyness prevents you from speaking, certainly your fingers can move the keyboard. So we can go with that way.
Alex, welcome. Go ahead.
Greetings. Okay.
Yes, Alex.
I was actually discussing motivational imperatives with somebody local to where I live, and they wanted to know exactly what a motivational imperative was. So I actually went into the book and I just realized that it is a statement of intent. And there's a bit more weight to it than that, but the whole point is it's a statement of intent. And I had to get over the fact that to this person that it's not a statement that you do to somebody else. It's a statement of intent you make to yourself. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's absolutely true. I like to look at it in terms of if you get indoctrinated by a cult, they will put in a motivational imperative for you, serve the dear leader or whatever it is. But the motivational imperative really is about indoctrinating yourself. It's becoming the kind of person you want to become based on a vision and intent you have, and letting that drive you. Something I'd also like to add about motivational imperative. I was talking to a friend about it, and he asked me what my motivational imperative is, and what I told him is I don't. And I did mention a motivational imperative, but the truth is I don't really tell people my motivational imperative because every time you start a project and you share it with somebody, a little bit of pressure goes off of you. And also the other reason is people cannot attack something that they don't even know is there. So why let people judge you for your ambition? Okay. Just don't even have it there. The second thing is, if you want pressure, don't ever talk about it, but always think about it and let the pressure go out, not in your words, but in your behaviors, in your choices, in your habits, in the rituals that you perform every day. Let that happen. And instead of being someone who yaks about what they want to accomplish, be the kind of person who just quietly moves through the world and leaves in their wake results. That's much more impressive. And you don't have to say a thing, and people are going to talk about you anyway, if you're able to do that. So that's my final lecture on motivational imperatives. Thank you, Alex.
My pleasure.
And go ahead and mute yourself. There you go. All right.
There we go. Thank you. That's really important. I know that a lot of people I've worked with and myself, even, if you're trying to lose weight, probably best to keep it to yourself, because then you get a lot of looks when people catch you with that 2-pound box of See's candy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Exactly.
anyway, if there aren't any more questions, let's start with today's fun lecture. We have, of course, David Barron, as you know, creator of Mind Control Publishing and New Hampshire Hypnosis. And today we're going to talk about amnesia. So you can forget to remember the things that you need to forget that you no longer feel the need to remember. So, David, um, in your work, let's start with the basics. How would you describe amnesia in hypnosis? What exactly are we talking about? So, assuming that someone who knew nothing, um,
Yeah.
what are the key points that you want to get across to them?
Okay. Yeah. The very first thing, in order to understand the whole concept of amnesia, I really think you have to talk about the whole idea of what dissociation or disassociation is to really understand it. So I have a PDF. I just posted a link in the chat that is available to download. It will be a resource for anyone who wants to talk about this. So talk about dissociation. Dissociation is a central part of hypnosis. Keep in mind, everyone comes wanting to make a change. They want to quit smoking, but they're trying to do it inside to themselves on the inside. And they're doing nothing but facing some sort of barrier or wall that keeps them from doing that. What hypnosis does is separate them. I mean, of course, you go to the classic definition of hypnosis to bypass the critical factor. It separates them from all of their judgment, from all of their assumptions, from all of the things that they identify as themselves. And they're able, with awareness, but without any judgment, turn and make changes. And that's how people get results. But dissociation happens on a spectrum. And so I want to talk about the whole spectrum of dissociation and we'll talk about how this relates to amnesia and memory. So first of all, everyone has some qualities of dissociation with them. Some of them are very skilled at it, but all of us have put our keys down and not known where the damn things are because we weren't entirely there at that moment. So another form of dissociation is, say you look out the window and you just notice your mind drifting off. You're not really in that moment. You're not aware of the situation around you. I had this very embarrassing moment once. I was sitting in this air terminal waiting for a flight. There was in front of me an attractive woman, just right in front of me. And I was lost in thought. I don't even know what I was thinking about, but I wasn't looking at her, or at least I consciously wasn't aware of her. And then all of a sudden she starts looking at me really strange. And I realized as I was thinking about something, she asked me what time it was. And like about 20 seconds passed before I realized that happened. I was completely dissociated from this very attractive woman that I would have been eager to talk to. So that's an example of it. When we are deeply focused, we dissociate all the environment around us. And then you go into some of the aspects of dissociation that can be, what would you call it? I think the term is pathological or problematic. Dissociating uncontrolled is often problematic. You know, you're staring at somebody, you forget their name, and there's someone you've known forever. That part of your awareness has stepped away. It's dissociated. The pathological parts of dissociation are depersonalization. That's one degree of it. And that's where people feel, I'm somewhere in my body, but I'm not even really, I don't feel like I'm connecting with anything in the world. And it feels very uncomfortable if it happens unintentionally. The other aspect beyond that is derealization. That's weirder and likely even more uncomfortable. It's when you're in your body, but everything around you feels artificial. And people say it's everything feels like it's fake. It feels like a movie set. Now we can go into the other aspects of there's hypnotic amnesia. I'll talk about that. And there's a situation where I sort of engineer that into one of my sessions and why I do that. Situational dissociation. That's I think that falls under what's called the door effect, where every time you enter a doorway, a part of your memory recedes. It's like if you ever go on an adventure and you go from one place to another and to another, and they're all different environments, it's sometimes hard to remember what order they were in. It's sometimes hard to remember all of them at the same time because you keep moving from one awareness to another very quickly. So this can be engineered. I did know a hypnotist who he would do this really strange thing, which is he'd take them into his room, the hypnosis chair, and he'd hypnotize them. And then in the middle of hypnosis, he'd have them stand up, walk out of the room, go into a separate room that was completely different. He would make all of the hypnotic instructions that he would give them. They would get the unconscious agreement to follow these instructions. Then he'd hypnotically ask them to step up and go into the other room. They had no memory they were in another room. Now, there's a benefit to that, and I will talk about that in a moment. Going along the more pathological forms of dissociation, there is identity confusion, where people say, I don't know who I am anymore. This is very common under stress, and stress is a big, this is a big factor that initiates dissociation. You can go as far as dissociated fugue, where people lose events, time, and days, where they have lost time, and sometimes lost memory. A story a hypnotist told me was he had a client who remembers as a little girl living on the East Coast, and they moved to the West Coast. And they moved by car, but she had no memory of the whole event of traveling. And in hypnosis, the trauma that she experienced was having to be in the same hotel room while her parents were having sex. And she said, nope, I'm just going to block that out. And so that's why she had no memory of the whole event. But as an adult, it was something, she could uncover and deal with. So I'm sure many of you have had experiences with clients who have moments of their life they just don't remember. And sometimes you can uncover that with hypnosis. You will find often trauma is a big focus of that amnesia. Let's see. Dissociative identity disorder. Again, I've met some people who have compartmentalized parts of themselves so profoundly they have different identities. And they're really uncomfortable to talk with, because you have this adult person who talks to you, and then on another topic, they talk like a little girl. And then on another topic, they talk in an entirely different way. And this is simply how they deal with their environment. Sometimes they have awareness or co-awareness of these shifts and changes. Sometimes they just happen spontaneously. I haven't met many of those people who have complete amnesia walls between personalities. On that, creating a separate personality hypnotically. I do know of people who profess to do it and have a, let's just say they have worked for government agencies in which having a hypnotic courier or a hypnotic asset is very useful. And they have documented the process that they go through. It's not an easy process. It's not a short process. It is ongoing, and they become very skilled at creating alters that have certain skills for at certain times. And if you're sincerely interested in how this works, I have a document on mindcontrolpublishing.com called about how to create hypnotic alters. I do not condone it, but it's useful information to understand the mind. Now, so dissociation all happens on a spectrum, and we've all had experiences of dissociation. So being able to utilize that is very important. Applying that to memory. Memory isn't always just one thing. It is a compilation of events, situations, and senses and experiences and assumptions and beliefs that we sort of bring together to call a memory. And there are a couple of very interesting things that can sort of help you loosen those things up, which is just the very first thing you can say is just, are you sure? Are you sure? You're just sort of creating a little bit of doubt. And even just a little bit is all you need. You know, are you sure that that's what you remember? The other thing you can do to start bringing in doubt is you can bring in an authority figure. You can say a parent said this and this happened. And the first response is usually, no, it didn't happen. And you drop it and then you bring it up again a little later. And often the resistance is minimized. So you've changed the memory. The ability to actually just stop a memory from happening can be done with a lot of changes in submodalities. If you're not familiar with submodalities, just leave some sort of comment in the chat, and I will describe them very briefly. A modality is very simply, it's a way of, it's one of our senses. It's either seeing, hearing, remembering, or hearing, tasting, smelling, and tactile. So that's a modality. A submodality is a smaller version of that. So a sight, for example, has multiple modalities. It has colors, it has size, it has distance, it has location. There are a whole bunch of different modalities to that. Sound, hearing, has modalities of loud, faint, whispering, hissing, screeching. All of those are modalities. And so a way of sort of creating an introduction to changing something is just ask somebody to imagine it changing a modality. The typical swish pattern, for example, is a modality change where you have them envision the problem. Say it's envisioning right there where my fist is. There's your problem. And you have them envision it. You have them set the location, the distance, the size, the colors, and everything. And then you just start changing one thing at a time. The first thing you do is, well, move it way over here. And then turn it like 40 degrees. And then take out all the color. And as they do that, the memory changes. Something happened that I used that very effectively once. I was with a group of people, and in this group, someone got really super upset at someone else. And in this group setting, this one person totally exploded at this other person, just yelled at her, screamed at her, pointed, and walked out. And this other person was crippled and just sobbing. And so I did this very interesting thing. I said, take a moment and just imagine stepping back from this and seeing that from a distance. So she had her eyes closed and she was, crying and breathing hard, and said, close your eyes and imagine what just happened, but see it from a distance. And she nodded her head. Okay. Push it now 20 feet away and nod your head when you've done that. She did it, pushed it away, push it even further away and do that. And she did. And I said, now take that image that you have there 30, 40 feet away from you, start to move it to the side out of your field of vision. And when it's out of your field of vision, nod your head. She did. And then I said, move it all the way behind you. And she did. My last instruction was, I'm going to connect a pole from the back of your head to that object there, so that if you even try and turn around, it's still going to be behind you. Let me know when that's done. And she nodded her head. And I just had her open her eyes. And in a minute ago, she was traumatized and crying. And now she just didn't have that feeling. She just felt fine. So that changed the whole dynamic of it by working with the submodalities of spatial submodalities. So I'm going to stop. I'm going to ask if anyone has any additional questions. Alex, yeah, I've met some multiples myself, and I'm not comfortable with multiples. It's just too weird. Is it anyone have any questions, comments, observations? They can either put them in the chat or unmute. We'll go from there. Okay. Joe, you have any comments?
Yeah. Since you're talking about disassociation, one thing I think it's very important. Would you care to give us some thoughts on time distortion and the benefits of using that?
Oh, yeah. Time distortion is a function of memory. So you remember back when something happened. People often, well, you can do time distortion in so many different ways. If you're doing it in hypnosis, you start off by simply saying, this is going to take a very short amount of time. That's how you start off. You take as much time as you want. And then at the end, you say, and this took an incredibly short amount of time. In a moment, you'll wake up. It will feel like we've just started. And you wake them up, and their perception of that usually has changed. Now, I do this fairly regularly. What I don't do is I don't test that, because I don't want their conscious awareness going back and changing it by looking at their watch and realizing, oh no, so I make it so they don't consciously test it. Time distortion can also happen by having them go into their heads and make a change that takes, 5 days, 10 days. I did this once very successfully. I was dating a lady and she dumped me. Probably a good thing in her situation, but she dumped me, and I felt heartbroken and upset. And I regularly meditate. So I sat down and meditated, and I started thinking about this whole event. And I said to myself, how many days is it going to take to get over all this emotional crap? And I had this gut feeling, okay, it's going to take at least 2 weeks. for me to feel anywhere normal. And so I said, okay. And I was in meditation. I said, okay, I'm going to go through the next day and experience what it's like. So I went through the next 24 hours in my mind. And at the end of that next day, I still felt like crap. I said, well, let's go through the next day. And I went through the next day after that. Still felt like crap. I went through like 3 or 4 or 5 days, and I started to notice it felt a little bit better. Then I went through a week, and then 10 days, and then 2 weeks, and I realized, okay, now, okay, this is how I want to feel. And I opened up my eyes, and I realized I didn't feel heartbroken anymore. And so that is something you can do with yourself. I have done that occasionally with people who try and get over a breakup. I will, however, warn you, this may not work. Women tend to hold on to heartbreak a lot longer than men do. Men are wired with very simple wiring, so it tends to take a little bit more time with women. Your results may vary. So that's the things you can do with time distortion. Also, if you go through some of those distractions, like the what did we call it? The situational dissociation, where you start a topic and you move them to somewhere else, and then you come back to the location and you continue with that topic. The memory of that event may just fade if you never bring it up. So that's something to do that will do it. So let's talk about how to do amnesia. It's very interesting. I have noticed for some people, if you train them in hypnosis, they'll respond much better. But for some people, they can be really upset, and you can just look at them in their eyes and you can say, forget, snap your fingers. And all of a sudden, there's this big, long pause, and it's not there anymore. It's fun to do. I saw a fellow talk himself out of a parking ticket, or no, a speeding ticket, because the cop pulled up and he said, "Oh, I'm so sorry." So just forget about that for a moment. Just forget. I am trying to find this location. I know it's around here, but I somehow just forgot. And you know what it's like when you start something and you have an intention to get there and then you just forget? So can you tell me where to find this place? And the cop said, yes, it's over here and over here. So you repeat it. So it's over there and then over there. Yeah. And so that's location. Yes. And so I can go there to get there. So I can go now. And the cop said, yes. And he talked himself completely out of it. However, he did it a couple other times and got speeding tickets. So it worked. It works sporadically. Don't try and test it with a police officer unless you absolutely have to. Yeah, just saying forget. And I noticed this sometimes, that when I say that, and I ask people, what does it feel like when I say forget? They pause, and there's like a space that's sort of timeless, but lasts about a second or two, in which they feel very peaceful. And that's a very interesting response. I want to encourage you, go on YouTube and look for how to make someone forget their name. There are some very good techniques to help people forget their name. The demonstrations that I saw, there was a hypnotist who was doing it in a public space. And he would walk up to somebody and he would say, he'd introduce himself as a hypnotist. I want to show you something very interesting about your mind. Now, a lot of people would say, you know, don't mess with me. But he found some people who were very receptive. And he said, so I want you to imagine, and he'd reach over, I want you to imagine that I'm pulling out of your mind a thought. Now, this could be any thought, but you look at it and you realize it's your name. And I let that thought go, and it floats up, and it moves away out of sight, and it's gone. And it's gone from your thoughts. It's gone from your mind. He does this wipe across their face. It's gone from your memory. So what was your name? And they can't find it. Interesting things you'll notice when this works is when he pulls it out, they look at this as if it is a real thing. And he looks at it as if it is a real thing. And they're following along. And when he lets it go and he points up, he does this one thing that I noticed he did several times with several people. He would reach over and touch their arm. And I thought, why would he touch their arm? And I realized, oh, he's just adding one more thing to distract them. It wasn't a creepy touch. He would just have a hand touch the back of their arm or something like that. And that worked incredibly well. I've done this one experiment with myself, which is I saw a hypnotist talk about how he helps people, makes people forget their name in a show. This is the process I'm going to give to you. He says, so he'll take someone up who's part of the committee in the show, and he'll say, so have you ever noticed that memory is a natural state of mind? Or no, forgetting is a natural state of mind. The great example of this is, you know, you put your keys down and you walk away and you go to find them and it's gone. Forgetting is a natural state of mind. Or you may walk out of a supermarket looking for your car and you realize you don't know it's anywhere you thought it was. Forgetting is a natural state of mind. And maybe you meet someone you know, and in that moment, their name is gone. And you realize you don't remember the name. It's forgotten. Forgetting is a natural state of mind. And then he leans forward and he says, what was your name? And they pause because they've been primed with forgetting. And before they can find their name, he says, take your time. And that disrupts them one more time. And they can't find it ever until he gives it back to them. I have done that, and it's a very interesting response. I use that very same process on myself. So there's a saying, there's no hypnosis except self-hypnosis. And my response to that was sarcastically say, okay, can you forget your own name? Very few hypnotists I know can really forget their own name, but I was able to do it. I used that very same process. Having done this as much as I have, I always want to know what it's like for the other person to experience it. So I was sitting in meditation and I was saying, okay, let me pretend like I am the hypnosis subject. And and I went through this entire process. Forgetting is a natural state of mind. Forgetting is a natural state of mind. Forgetting is a natural state of mind. What was your name? And all of a sudden, it felt sort of uncomfortable. It is not that type of forgetting is not pleasant. It's weird. At the very best, it's weird, but it's not pleasant. And I realized, okay, I have accomplished this. I can't really find my name. I know it's there. I know if I work really hard, I can find it. This is what these people feel. And eventually I got it back and I realized, okay, yes, you can forget your own name. I do remember my mentor, Jeff Stevens. he would do this process of making a series of recordings, hypnotic recordings that he would listen to, and he would jumble them up. He wouldn't even know which one he's listening to. One of them was, when you wake up, you will not know who you are, where you are, or what you're doing for 15 minutes. And he woke up, and all he had said is, it was incredibly confusing. It was just incredibly confusing. I was just wandering around the house, touching things, trying to figure out what things were. And it all came back to him, and he said, okay, I guess I'm a pretty good hypnosis subject, but I don't want to do that again, which is a typical response. Now, how long does it last to a client? That's a good question. It depends. If you are doing a clinical session with somebody and you say forget, well, first of all, you don't ever ask them to try to remember what they forgot. They may remember it, but if you're making instructions for them to forget, you don't bring any anchors back to that. The reason that you do that is so they can't consciously go back inside and F it all up for themselves. Like they've got their problem solved and it feels good. Here, really overthink it now and get your problem back. That's what you're preventing them from doing. So the result is, how long does it last? Sometimes it's permanent. Sometimes they just don't have a memory of it, and that's fine. The important part is, do they get the benefit? That's the important part. Does that answer your question? Okay, good. Okay, yeah, Gray Fox. You don't need hypnosis to forget. Beer and wine do that just fine. Yeah, that's called brain damage. I discourage that. Now, there is a process I use. Those of you who have my manual, it's near the bottom, near the end of the manual. It's called the Repair of the Mind. And it is layered with a whole bunch of instructions, implied amnesia. I don't necessarily tell people to directly forget. The very center part of it is simply a metaphor of, you go into this part of the mind where your problem is, and you see it as a thing. And all of this together is creating your problem. And you are instructed to make various repairs to it. You clean it up, you remove things, you fix things with your thoughts, you go through this process, and then you leave. So that's the central part of it. The amnesia part of it starts with first, and this is sort of detailed, and you might want to write it down or review it in the video. First, you go into sanctuary, a place where you feel the most in control. It's already a point of dissociation. You second find a place in sanctuary that's made for you to sit and recline and relax. And you go there and you close your eyes and you keep going deeper into hypnosis. The second level of dissociation. Third, you're able to step outside of your body to see yourself there in hypnosis in sanctuary. And you tell yourself, you're dissociated, so you tell this second dissociated self to keep going deeper in hypnosis. Then you turn and you see a door, and this is set up as the door to the inner workings of the mind. The qualities of this door is, when you open it, you'll see this overwhelming and amazing sort of function that includes all of your mind. But you set it up beforehand that when you enter into it and do your work and come back, you know that all that you do is going to fade from memory. So you set that up just by knowing that this is going to happen. Then you give instructions to find whatever the problem is, and you step through. And you get to work, you make the repairs like I described earlier. Once the repairs are done, you find your place back to the opening to the inner workings of the mind. You step through and you see your body there resting. And so you close the door and all the memories begin to fade. That's the instruction. And then you slip back into your body in sanctuary. And you wake up in sanctuary. And the phrase I use is, as you wake up in sanctuary, like a dream, it begins to fade from memory, all that you have done. And then you go back into sanctuary. Then I have a couple of other, and it works even better when you have another process entirely. So the result. So I had this one lady. Her first session, something went seriously wrong. I've never had this happen, but she had a vasovagal response during the hypnosis session. The result is something happened and she fainted in the middle of the session and she woke up and vomited. Oh my God. So she was not in a good place to do that. We made an agreement to set another session up. We're going to do it in a different format. She's going to do it laying down as opposed to sitting. And I wasn't going to do what I did that time. So I'm not going to even test that again. And I did this process. Now, her problem was fear of needles. And she would pass out and vomit at the fear of needles. The point where she passed out that very first session, I wasn't even talking about needles. I was just in the midst of deepening. But I wasn't even going to go there. So we went through this process, going into sanctuary, laying down in this place that's made for her to rest, and then all the very levels of dissociation, coming back, and then going through another process. So because there was this secondary process, the time distanced her memory of all the repair of the mind. And she woke up, and I brought her back and I asked her how she was feeling. The result was she could always think about getting needles without giving a blood draw, for example, and it wouldn't bother her. And what I noticed with this, and I've tested it with a few people, is when you do it with amnesia, there's some sort of qualitatively different experience they tended to report. When someone does it without amnesia instructed, they wake up and they just feel like, I don't have a problem anymore. It's great. When you put in the amnesia, it's like, I don't have a problem anymore. This is so weird. I mean, yes, it's great, but it's more weird than it's great. But they're fine with it. And even when they wake up, I will suggest things that have to do with amnesia, which is notice, even though you don't notice or know exactly what happened, you can feel that something's different. That's a very sneaky persuasion. I'm just telling them what to think by saying, notice this. I don't even notice what happened, but it is different. And then I always follow up by saying, and it feels really good, doesn't it? Always use those words when they're reporting a good response. It feels really good, doesn't it? And they will nod their head and says, yes, it feels really good. So I have tested this on several different people since her, and that is typically the response. Something's weird, something's different, and I don't have that problem. So that's where the whole amnesia part comes in. Any questions or comments about this? Feel free to unmute, type something. We'll go from there. Alexis, it's a pleasure to see you here.
Hello. I'm not
Hi.
really adding much to the conversation, but I just wanted to say I really love the concept of the multiple layers of dissociation. Like
Yes.
to have a person lying in the sanctuary, have them step out of the body and then coach themselves on it. Like love it.
Yeah. And it took me a while to figure out the different levels of dissociation to do it. It's called what's it called? It's called opening loops. So you open one loop and one loop and loop, and then there in the very center is all the work that's done, and you just close the loops back up, and it's like a nice big sealed up package that's there somewhere in the depth of the mind doing its work.
Yeah. And it's like when you tell them to tell themselves things, but adds the visualization to it. So
Yeah. Speak on that a little bit more. I asked. Oh, yeah, that's right. I tell them to. One of the things I will tell people is I'm not that person anymore, and to feel the sense of strength it gives them to make that change. Speak on that just a little bit more, so I can add to it.
sure. I think this is something I remember. I mean, I've experienced it in other places too, but like you specifically have done that where if the person's first going into hypnosis, you're telling them to repeat to themselves what they're hearing. So they're telling themselves, and like
Right.
sometimes they can receive it better that way, especially if they're brand new to it.
Yes.
But this is like a whole visual element to that where they're coaching themselves.
Good point. Very beginning of the hypnosis session, instead of me giving them instructions, I have them create a voice in their head of someone that they would love to follow the instructions of, someone they trust, someone who will always tell them the right thing to do. And once they create that in their mind, instead of me saying it, I have them imagine this other voice saying it. And it makes it so much easier to follow. It has a mildly devious effect, which is eventually, because I am giving the instructions, it is my voice they're following, but they feel comfortable, they feel safe. Gray Fox, you raised your hand.
Thank you. Is there any particular client profile or any conditions where you wouldn't use any amnesia techniques at all?
It's sort of hit or miss. Some people simply don't respond as well to amnesia. I can't think of a specific profile. I can think that there are people who do amnesia incredibly well, and that's simply because, unfortunately, they had trauma way back when, and they were able to dissociate just as a survival mechanism. But as a general rule, I don't really put amnesia into it for most of the hypnosis sessions, simply because I want them to be able to reflect upon the experience. That is why it's weird when amnesia is in there. They can't reflect on it. They just know it was there. They were dissociated so much they don't have a memory of it, and it feels weird. But when they come out of hypnosis and they feel very good about it, they can reflect on it and continue to build on that. So as a general rule, it's not something I do a lot or even totally encouraged to do a lot. That was a good question.
Thank you.
Yeah, anyone, Blair?
Yeah, actually, you just kind of touched on my question right there at the end. If it does feel weird to them to not remember, um, I would say, well, why do that? Why not let them have the experience and know that that something good happened and know what that was? Why the amnesia? What would be the benefit?
The only benefit of amnesia is you make it so they can't go back in their head and undo it. And so this is very intuitive. That only happens with lots of experience. Some people, they love to overthink something.
Yeah.
And so you might want to layer that little amnesia in there and make it feel very comfortable. So that might be a condition where it would work. Very good question.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Joe? Oh, yeah. Marco, did you have a question?
Hello, David. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
I'll be very happy if you can give one or two suggestions on about trauma, war trauma. I'm asking that because I have a new client on. I do have a lot of experience in a lot of cases, but in war trauma specifically, I don't have much experience. So if you can enlighten me with, I know the submodality is a great thing to work, but if you can.
Yeah.
I mean, one or two tips will be great.
Oh, wow. Well, do you have my manual? I don't think you do.
No, I do have 2 books.
Okay.
Yeah.
Email me so I can give you my manual. The very first
Okay.
session can get some very good results. The very first session I use the symbology process. I mean, they know what the trauma is like. They know how they're responding to it in real life. They want an entirely different feeling. But all they're noticing in the present moment is this dread, this fear, this anxiety, whatever they're calling it. So through the symbology process, I have them start to create this very positive feeling. It could be a sense of peace, could be a sense of peace of mind, ease, comfort, relaxation. And I build that up without even referring to trauma. And I build it up and have them go through their day experiencing this, future pacing it 3 or 4 days in a row, and then starting very slowly to bring in the things that would trigger the trauma or the anxiety. But making sure you put this peace of mind up significantly so that it overrides the trigger. And I have them future pace that again and again and again. That works very well, but it also depends on a lot of things like how recent the trauma is. Trauma is life-changing. And so one of the things you can do is you can, there's a process that I call the 2 chairs, where you have you as the person who's having all the problems, and you talk to this other version of yourself with love, with compassion. You explain all the things you're doing wrong. You explain why I love this other person so much, why this person deserves love. And you next tell this other you all the things you want them to do and get an agreement that they're going to do it. And then you bring these 2 parts together. This is a lot of the sort of like a forgiveness process that some people use to forgive other people, but it's really about forgiving yourself for holding on to all this pain and injury. Perhaps you and I can have a discussion about this. So reach out to me and we'll see what we can do.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Alex. Alex had something. I'm going to let you talk on it. I'll read it. I can create deeper pocket inside a client's mind. I drop them into a trance, give them something fun to play with. Yes. A hypnotic dream sequence. I drop them into a deeper state where I impart my instructions. Again, resume the dream, and then they meet up with Tom Cruise or Selena Gomez. And then I bring them out of trance, and they remember meeting Tom Cruise and Selena Gomez is all they remember. That's great. That's perfect.
Thank you. Sometimes with someone who's doing a trance for the very first time, I open up a sort of portal, as it were, to drop them into the deepest part of the trance where the dissociation is deeper in that one little pocket universe, as it were. Then I put in the anchoring trigger, which would be something that brings us straight back into a trance, like a code word or something that's specific for them. And the sort of when I turn around and say blah blah blah, snap the fingers, they'll come straight back into trance. But
Yeah.
when it's the first timer, the experience I give them is something like the taste of their very first favorite ice cream or their very first dessert or something like that. So if all they remember is a chocolate sticky toffee pudding or something like that they had when they were 8, that's one I just take them to the start of it and run them through it slowly so they're enjoying every sensation, taste, texture, then the whole surroundings when they were there, like a birthday party or something like that. Drop in the anchoring trigger, close it up, and then just let them run through that the experience of enjoying their first chocolate pudding or something. Then bring them out, and that's all they remember is the chocolate pudding thing.
Yeah, again, you go back to that's perfect. You go back to that thing of layering one dissociation into another, and then bringing them back out, associating them in. Thank you, Alex. Very good. Someone raised their hand with the letter C. You are welcome to speak.
Hey, dude. I also work with people who are, well, I don't want to put too much out there, but I work with some Ukrainians who are still in Ukraine and kind of going through it. And you referenced the manual. I'm not sure I have it. Is that, I'm looking on your website. Is that the Mind Control Manual of Dantalian Jones?
No. This is a personal manual. I will share it with people who are sincere about doing hypnosis. It is functionally my operations manual. Reach out to me, email, phone call, however you want to do it, and I will make sure you get a copy of it.
Sure.
Okay.
And while we're on the amnesia subject, because this is actually a little bit related, I've played with what you were saying with like making loops and going through doors and things like that. And perhaps it's because of a little bit of the context, but I've had clients where they will just resist, even though I've gone through 7, 10 different layers, very elaborated. Is there an upper limit or a point where you should just stop on that?
Well, let me ask, how do you test it? Are you able to test it at the end of the session?
So I tend to be
notice
testing
the resistance.
So I tend to be testing as I'm going along. If I'm in person, I can, I usually establish if it's okay for me to physically touch them, and I'll, do something like, I've done like stiff arm tests. I've really kind of played around with that. As it's in the session, I will notice, I'll pay attention for other signs of relaxation, flush of the chase fin, changing breathing, all the other things that work in, shall we say, less charged settings. But and it's a certain personality type I notice that tends to kind of have kind of control issues around this, I guess I'll say, where hyper intellectual, hyper controlling, hyper wanting to be in control, where if they feel there's an internal sense of safety being violated is kind of how I'm putting words to a concept that I don't fully understand, so I apologize. But yeah, and then it's like as soon as they feel that there's something going past whatever their imagined boundary is, then they kind of snap back.
Yes. Okay. First thing is, if you're perceiving this person, someone that's more in control, the thing you want to focus on is security, a sense of safety, and build that up. So that they're feeling safe in this particular environment, and nothing can happen to them. The second thing is your testing is sort of a way to bring them back. You might simply not test it, because if you ask them, I don't know how you would form the test question. So how do you test it in hypnosis? What's the question or the phrase or the methodology you use to make sure you got the result?
Generally speaking, I just pay attention for the physical signs and then have them kind of trans-trained enough that, because I don't go straight into the deep things on the first session, so to say. In this specific case, because I almost started to treat it as kind of an experiment, because she wanted to, the client wanted to address some of these emotional things, but was just so entrenched and so resistant at it that
Yeah.
any sort of attempt to touch it or get around it would just instantly snap her out, open her eyes up, kind of.
Yeah. In that case, I would probably not go to forgetting or dissociating like that right away. I would probably emphasize the feeling they would want to feel. Keep in mind, your hypnosis subjects wants one thing. It's to not do something. It's to not smoke. It's to not feel anxiety. It's to not think obsessively. So they're going to tell you what they don't want. And for someone with trauma,
not what they do.
Not what they do. So you ask them, what would be, I use this phrasing. Let's assume I can make all the things you don't want, I can make them stop. I can reach inside your head, unplug it all, and carry it away, and it'll smell like bleach. It's so clean. Now we have a feeling that we can put inside. I mean, an emotion, something that would make you feel so good. You couldn't have that old response. Now, that's going to vary from person to person. It could be a peace of mind. It could be a sense of confidence. It could be a sense of self-love, acceptance, a feeling of joy, but there are a lot of good feelings out there. Let's take a moment. Tell me, what would be the feeling that would make you feel so good you couldn't even go back to those old thoughts? Then I shut up, and they start telling me what they want. What is that feeling? Someone who's gone through trauma like you're dealing with, they want to feel peace. They want to feel safe. I mean, these are just my words, but I can just imagine what they want to feel. And once they give you something that feels good, you test it. And you test it. I do this all out of hypnosis beforehand, by the way. I say, just imagine you're feeling all these feelings. Imagine you're feeling this sense of peace. Imagine feeling this sense of security, this sense of ease. You're feeling this incredible feeling, and it just keeps getting better, and you just keep feeling better and better. Would you have this anxiety if you felt this? If they say no, then that's what you go with. If they say yes, then you either have to build it up more or add more qualities in. But this is a conversation I have before hypnosis, so I know the direction they're going in. Okay? Then the whole hypnosis session, or at least 80% of the hypnosis session, is about building up this feeling and making it so present and so strong, and then future pacing it through every day, just feeling this feeling from the moment they awaken. You will probably get a much better response that way.
All right. Yeah. Thank you for your insight. I'm taking notes.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. All right. And again, reach out to me. Mind control is my business at gmail.com. If you would like that manual, I'll get it sent to you. And this is my policy. When I send you this manual, it is no longer my manual. It is your manual. So you do whatever you want to it. I just ask you to try and make the world better. That's it. Okay?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Okay, we've done an hour, so let's pause for a moment. I can go on for this for a long time, and I can watch people just sort of dwindle away out of fatigue. But again, what Joe and I are attempting to do is we are attempting to bring a cohort of people together to actually take this manual that I'm talking about and make it something you can work with. So we are organizing for now an event that's going to be happening in June. If you go to Mind Control Publishing, it is a live event. It's happening in Fremont, California. At this point, we're debating whether to delay it. We are looking for, we cannot have more than 12 people because everyone needs attention. but we're looking for at least 8 to 10 people who are willing to commit to do this. It's a 4-day event, and you will definitely learn this process. And again, once you learn it, it's not mine, it's yours. You take it, run with it, you do your best to make the world better with all this information, and that's what I'm asking. If either of you, any of you have any questions about this, you can contact me. I have my phone number available in most places, and you're welcome to call me. Questions, final comments, anything else?
You know, David, just to clarify, when we have this, when you repost it, I think one of the bigger misconceptions with hypnosis is they're making people forget the problem. They're just pushing it down deep and suppressing it. That's not the case. Really, we're just taking away the emotional charge from the event. And, like you did mention earlier, the amnesia is more so people can't go back and, I'll use a polite term, fiddle with it. Because
yes.
I think it's human nature. You look at so many people who they get their hair cut, and as soon as they get home, they're cutting at the bangs because they know they can do better. Well, the same thing happens in our work, and that's where it's really helpful.
Yeah, that's a good point. Final, Gray Fox.
Yes, I'm very intrigued by this manual that you've mentioned. What
Okay.
sorts of things is encapsulated inside of it?
Think of this as, okay, I wrote this for myself to operate my business from. It is my operations manual. It's all advice that I give to myself, plus how I do my business. It includes the processes of hypnosis, but it also includes how I treat people, the emails I send, how I keep track of things. It is literally an operations manual that I use to keep myself on track. And I wrote it so that I wouldn't have to think anymore. One thing about hypnotists is you find they're freaking lazy. They just want to tell people what to do and have them do it, make the world better. Well, yeah, I personify that in this manual. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay. It is. I'll
right.
an email off for it. Yeah, that sounds like
All right.
Be really helpful as I'm starting out.
Perfect. All right, guys. Next week, same time. Any suggestion on topics? It's something I sort of deal with every once in a while, but any ideas on what would be a great topic to work with?
Can I put something to have a think about, please, David? It's something. Well, because I've just finished a cognitive behavioural hypnotherapy program here in the UK, and one of the things the instructor was talking about was the concept of the subconscious mind, about how there's so much debate about whether it exists or not. Is it an actual physical part? Is it a construct in some part of the brain somewhere, and things like that? And you often see a lot of things of hypnotists talking about, talking about the subconscious mind. I wonder if you had some thoughts on that you could share, perhaps.
I would be happy to. That would be at least part of a topic, if not an entire topic in itself. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right.
David, do you do Ericksonian stuff much?
I used to do Ericksonian stuff a lot, until I realized you can get results so much easier and so faster by just telling people what to do and making them follow instructions. In fact, I cut my teeth on Ericksonian, and I did it a lot. I got introduced to Jeff Stevens, and he basically said, why do all the nimbly untesting stuff that Ericksonian does, which Eric's is good. Ericksonian's good, but he just wants to fix people and leave them and take a little bit of their money in return. And so, yeah, I'm pretty good at it. Ericksonian hypnosis is very good to learn, specifically if you want to work with somebody conversationally or just with persuasion. So I don't want to completely badmouth it. All right.
Yeah, I was going to say, because there's like non-awareness sets and storytelling, and like there's so many subjects in Ericksonian hypnosis that you could.
And it's really good to learn. It's good to learn and combine it with direct hypnosis. So I want to encourage people to just keep learning. All right, guys, I'm gonna wrap it up. I want to remind you, because you're here, you're not somewhere else, and so you had to sacrifice to be here. And I want to acknowledge that sacrifice and thank you, and ask you to return and tell other people who might be interested in this to come with you. All right. Bless you guys. Please take care.
Thank you very much, David.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you much.